Welcome back, everybody, broadcasting to you from Nasrec. And gosh, I have not seen this place as quiet as it is this morning. I think people still waking up and, not even, I think sleeping in. Not much sleep has been had by anybody that's been gathered here at Nasrec, whether you are from the media or whether you are a representative or delegate that is here. It is just, sleep is something that you might as well just forget about, because there are important issues at hand. And I think the most important issue is the voting process. But there's still a lot more that still needs to be done here. But I think what we need to talk about, though, is the voting, because that was what the public was waiting for. All of us were expecting those results to come out perhaps in the morning, but then it was delayed until the afternoon, and then it was delayed further until the evening. And then at around about 7 o'clock or so, that was when the announcement was made that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is now the president of the ANC. Let's get a little bit of political analysis this morning. And joining us is Lebohang Pheko and, of course, Tinyiko Maluleke. It's great to have both of you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks, Leanne.
Yeah. I want to get just a sense from both of you how you're feeling this morning. So you've managed to maybe get 2 or 3 hours of sleep and to mull it over your heads as to Ramaphosa and the rest of the top six. What do you think? Let's start with you, Lebohang.
Yeah, so I mean, any combination, any configuration was always going to be contested. It was going to have to be a compromise. We've been looking and waiting for the elusive unity team. I'm not sure whether this delivers on that. I think it's just a basically two slates that came together, 50-50 down the line.
Yeah.
And it's really not so much a unity team as much as a contestation of power, a consolidation of different factions, and the attempt to bring very disparate streams together, regionally, as well as, of course, the different dynamics and ideological dynamics within the party. But more than that, this is a party that's been wrestling with itself for a long time, and it continues to do so. I'm not sure that this top six is going to be able to do much to desist from this wrestling. I'm not sure if it's going to be the sufficient anchor for the rest of the party.
Well, Professor, I mean, do you share the same views?
Yeah, well, I actually agree with Lebohang. This top six is likely to be too heavily encumbered, given the manner in which it came about, the slates, and also, you know, it is not gender it's not a gender friendly top six.
Yeah, which is a great disappointment.
Only one woman in it. I'm not sure that it's that intergenerational either, in terms of age range. Not that I know the age of each and every one person off the top of my head, but it doesn't look that intergenerational. And of course, KZN is not represented at all there for the first time in a long time, and many people have observed that as being a factor. So, but top sixes do not always end the way they start. I mean, there was a time when the top six of Zuma was supposed to be so united, but towards the end, it was anything but united. So there will be some shifting that will take place inside of it. And I think ultimately, will Cyril take firm leadership of it? Because if he does, he will shape it as much as it can be shaped by any of the ideological baggages that each member of the top six brings.
I think the announcement of the NEC, however, today is really going to be telling for Ramaphosa, because this is, as is kept being said, the decision-making body of the ANC. And I think this is where he needs the support. This, again, is a very difficult thing to tell, because this is up to the delegates to nominate and to vote in the NEC. But Lebohang, I mean, this is an important moment for him, because this is where he needs to stamp his authority on the NEC.
He does. He's... Yeah, I mean, he's in a difficult but interesting place, and these few moments are very decisive. The Americans talk about the first 100 days. I would actually suggest the first 100 hours would be incredibly important for him. He needs to show that he has agency. He needs to illustrate that he's able to anchor and corral the forces that are around him and decide in a very particular way how he's going to lead and whom he's going to lead. He needs to decide very clearly and illustrate that through the rest of the 80 people that he are selected, make sure that there's an adequate balance of forces for him to carry out the sort of economic policy change that's necessary, that he has been talking about, this elusive 10-point plan, this great Marshall Plan, the New Deal that he's been talking about. And I'm also hopeful that he's going to be able to then bring in far greater intergenerational mix into that as well. The intergenerational mix is obviously not only age and ideas, but it's not only age and gender. It includes ideas, and it also includes regional representation.
If we have a look, particularly when it comes to these first 100 hours, which I do like. I think I'm going to jump onto that bandwagon of talking about the first 100 hours. There are great expectations on President Cyril Ramaphosa from the ANC as to how he's going to act on these promises that he's made. And where do you see this going, Professor? I mean, do you think that the idea of a recall of the president of the country, Jacob Zuma, is a possibility, particularly with the fact that there are very strong supporters of Zuma in the top six?
You see, the first 100 hours are really the hours when he has the opportunity to issue a few gestures, a few symbolic gestures that will indicate where he wants to go, because that's all he can do. Now, the recall, I think we probably will have to calm down a little bit about that. I don't see that happening easily with the kind of top six that he has. But what he can't not talk about is corruption and state capture, and what his plan is for that. Because not to talk about that will be like to try and ignore the elephant in the room. And that room is not just the room where the top six meets, it is the entire country. The entire country wants to hear the ANC president point to a direction as to how corruption and state capture are going to be handled. It's linked to the entire resuscitation of the economy, because in a sense, you can't talk about resuscitating the economy without tackling the problems that are of perception, some of them, but also the very practical problems of a party that is now seen to be corrupt. I mean, the General Secretary himself, in his report, says that the perception is that we are a corrupt party, and I think Cyril will need to tackle that.
I want to just, before we get to the news headlines, which are in just a couple of seconds, in fact, I think the most important, or the first time we're going to hear from the president of the ANC is during the closing address. And that should be happening tomorrow sometime, obviously tomorrow evening with the timing that we're having now. That is a very important moment for him, isn't it?
It is. He can perhaps tell us a bit more about his plans for the next few months. He can perhaps indicate the direction that he wants to take the party in, leading up to the elections. He can also perhaps begin to be a bit definitive about the matters that my colleague has also alluded to, and use the podium to speak about his vision for anti-corruption. If he wants to settle some scores and mention that he is stamping his authority, that would be the time and the place to do so. However, I think it's very important to note that there are people who still recall that there's nobody in this milieu who is who is entirely virtuous, himself included. And I think that he has his own Achilles tendons, his Achilles heels, that politically there's still a lot of scope for certain people to make use of. There is still Marikana, we can't forget this.
No.
And I don't think we should forget get this. So there's certainly, there's no entire virtue amongst the top six and even within the movement. And I think that what's really important is, even though there is no virtue, the illusion of virtue, the illusion of rising above, the illusion of being a unifier is almost as important as the practice of it at this moment.
The semblance of it.
We're going to leave it there. We are going to continue giving some analysis, and we're going to dig a little bit deeper into Cyril Ramaphosa and, of course, his past, because, you know, he's come from a background of politics, and this is a position that he has been wanting for many, many years, and it's come through, but we'll see at what cost it's come through. So do stay tuned for all of that. But right now, just a bit after 6:30, let's get the news headlines of the day. Palesa, over to you.